Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Multi-Location Marketing Show. I am your host, Matt Nickols. Elliot Olson, who's the other host, is a COVID casualty this week, so he will not be joining us, but we have a very special treat. Kevin Mullett is back with us again. He is the VP of Program Services for MarketSnare and works with clients every day to solve local marketing challenges at scale across many locations. And we have a special guest with us, Tim Flint from Flint Analytics, based in Indianapolis, Indiana. Tim has been a good friend and longtime partner for MarketSnare, and we were super excited to have him on. And so I wanted to start out today. The topic of this week's podcast is going to be local SEO trends, right, for 2022. So what are some of the things that we saw happen last year, what we kind of predict is happening going into 2022, what some of the great opportunities are for your businesses at the local level, and what we're seeing in the data, and maybe some tactics and things that you can focus in on this year that we think will really move the needle for you. So, but I wanted to start out with just kind of giving a little background on Tim and Flint Analytics, how we met, some of the cool things that they're doing at their agency, and then that'll give you a little background on Tim, and then we'll kind of get into some of the topics. So we've known Tim now for what? How many years has it been that we've been working together?
I think we met in 2015, probably.
Yeah, so
sounds about right.
5, 6 years, and so funny story. I tell this to a lot of our prospective clients, and that Tim started working. So he has an agency. They're based in Indianapolis, and he had a client. This is kind of how we met and some of the background, and it's been an amazing to see Tim and his agency grow, over the years we've been working with him. But Tim had gotten a client for a national shutter and window treatment brand called Sunburst Shutters that was based in Indy. They had a location in Indy, and then I think he expanded it to a couple other locations. And he was really looking for, how do I scale the national corporate? They weren't doing a ton to support their local dealers. They're kind of like they're dealers, but they have quite a bit of.
From a digital standpoint, they were doing a bunch of other stuff.
From a digital standpoint, from a local digital marketing, SEO, digital ads, those kinds of things. They were kind of letting which is common, and it's nothing negative about Sunburst. It was just, a lot of times these national brands, if they aren't doing anything in that area, they just let their local people handle it. And so Tim had won a couple accounts with these clients and was doing just a bang up job. They were crushing it in their local markets. They were really driving a lot of organic visibility. Their digital ads were doing really well. And so Tim saw an opportunity to go out and pick up some more of these, but he was saying, like, how do I do this at scale? How do I scale the great job that we're doing at the local level to many? I think Sunburst had around 50-ish local markets that they were in, and dealers around the country. And actually, Tim was hosting an event called Smart. There was just a kind of a digital marketing get together where they'd have speakers and things come in. And Kevin, who goes around and speaks on the national circuit at a lot of the big, SEO and digital marketing conferences, was invited by Tim to come down and talk, right? And I don't know what topic you were talking about, but that was the first entry point. So kind of talk about that a little bit, if you guys recall it.
Well, Douglas Carr, a good friend of both Tim and I, who is also a speaker and I've known for many years, said, hey, we're doing this thing down here, and it's kind of like the event that I used to run in Fort Wayne, which was called the Social and Marketing Breakfast event, where we just had local businesses or anybody that wanted to know more about marketing come in. He's like, you ought to come down and just, talk about social media and tools with me.
Yeah, and it was a tool-based one, like marketing tools based.
Yep. And And so, I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's good to, good to go see friends anyway that were in that market. And so I shot down there one evening, and I think we had a pretty good showing there, and we just talked about that. And then Tim kind of heard a few things that I was talking about, and we started a conversation afterwards, which led into, and Tim, I'll let you tell the rest of this here.
Yeah, because we'd already had some conversations with Sunburst Corporate, and I was just like, historically, they hadn't let stores have their own websites or things like that. And I was like, all the data I have shows that a local business can easily beat a national business, especially when it comes to local terms and local marketing. And I was like, I really think these guys should let their stores, every single one of them, manage their own website. And I was like, I've got to find a way to build out this program because this needs to be done. And Kevin was like, well, yeah, we actually kind of work on that. And I'm like, really? What are you doing? And I'm like desperately in need at this point. And like Kevin's way underselling it. And he's like, yeah, we do that. And we have some software that makes that easier. I was like, what is it? And he's like, well, I'll introduce you to Matt. And then I was like, okay, I needed any help I could at the time, and met Matt, and I was like, this is exactly what we need, and I don't even have to build it. This is amazing. Because I was ready to go spend a ton of money to figure out how to build this thing, hopefully the client's money, but obviously way cheaper when they had already built and solved a lot of the problems I hadn't even thought of yet.
Yep. So then I know, like, we met, we talked about it, and I think your initial goal was to kind of go one by one after these dealers and get them on board. And if I remember right, we kind of, as we talked, we said, let's go. We decided together to go pitch it to corporate because if we could get buy-in from them, they could roll it out. And is that how you remember it?
I don't know if we ever tried to go one by one. I think that was an option, but I think we were already in discussions with corporate. So I think we
wanted to have a way to scale it up, make it work.
Yeah, we just needed the way to scale it and offer them a solution because they were intrigued by what we were doing because they'd seen the success we had had with the other locations. And so I think we flew out there and had a long meeting with them explaining what we do and why we do it and what the goal was. So,
yeah.
Which, to be fair, for those that are joining this podcast is something that we come up with quite frequently. Is a lot of times the doing stuff at scale isn't even considered for multiple reasons. One of which Tim articulated here is it's very difficult to do at scale, and it's not something that's very commonly done. So there's not a lot of different softwares or tools out there that allow you to do it. So just for the efficacy, or for people to understand, is that's why it's not so common and why this got framed up that way.
Yeah, one of the challenges is that we always have is, when you're doing something new and a new approach, a lot of times people that haven't heard of it, there's not a lot of information out there published. I remember we went and talked with John Barnes, who's the head of marketing at Sunburst, and he loved the idea and he wanted to, really improve his local visibility. And the whole concept is that Tim had figured out, how to make it work at the local level. He knew what terms, how to develop content, localize everything. He was doing, the best practice and the results were showing. Now, how do we take that and give it, from a handful of locations to, an entire network of 50 local markets and make it work not only out of the gate to get it all set up, but then how do you manage it, maintain it, make updates, new promotions, all those things, and, keep the uniqueness and the local relevance that you need to really win and build authority in those local markets. And so that's exactly what, the MarketSnare platform does. But sometimes you run into, questions like, I've been doing some research on this. I Googled it and I found these articles and they all say that you should do it in one website and have location pages. And, the idea at the time was pooling your domain authority together, and then that's going to help those win. But on the flip side, what a lot of people don't understand, if you dig a little bit more deeper into those articles, most of them would say something like, well, it'd be great to have local websites, but that's a lot of work and you can't manage it. It would be a nightmare, which yes, it would be if you didn't have the right tech to do it. So, you have to overcome some of those hurdles, but eventually we won the account. They bought in, and Tim went from managing, a handful of these to like the whole network. And what we saw in the data, was just exactly what we were hoping for and expected to see, which was, this just massive growth. And I think we had something like in the first 12 to 18 months, it was like 300% growth in organic traffic and leads, while we were reducing their overall, and Tim was also managing their digital ads. So I think that was a pretty consistent budget, but the performance, I think we saw a 30 to 40% increase in performance.
We actually have run an analysis over the past, because we've been working with them now for 6 years. Over the past 6 years, we have reduced the overall cost per lead, including all of our management fees, the cost of the software, the cost of the advertising, all of it. For the past 6 years, we have reduced that every single year, that cost per lead. Going on 6 years now, to be honest, I mean, they as a company, they had tremendous growth. And I can't share numbers exactly on some of it, but they, along with many home services companies, they were very well benefited by the pandemic, because a lot of people stopped spending money on travel and they started spending money on their houses, right? And so they were greatly benefited by the pandemic because of such, but they mostly were benefited from the pandemic because they had the system in place to capitalize on it that other people didn't.
Well, and pre-pandemic, they were
pre-pandemic, they were doing great too.
Yeah.
But to Tim's point, you can't see those upticks if you're not visible, right? So if when people decide to spend that money and then they start looking into it and they start doing research and you're invisible, then somebody else is going to get your portion of the pie. I mean, that's just how it works.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in Sunburst, I remember from when we started working with them, they built this amazing new corporate offices and manufacturing facility. I think that was like 3 or 4 years into our relationship with them. But I have to think that a lot of that sales growth and visibility and lead growth made that possible. But they did. I mean, they have this amazing facility right off a major interstate in Las Vegas, and they've just done really well. So it's just been amazing to see that. And then Tim and his agency grow, and how that really boosted their revenue and ability to grow their agency. And then they parlayed that success into, many other accounts. So now they're working with national brands like Vivint, another major security brand that is a major reseller for ADP. ADT.
Yeah, Secure 24 Alarm Systems.
I know there's an ADT too, right?
Yeah, they're the largest ADT dealer these days. So,
JC Hart, which is a big Midwest-based, they own a bunch of multifamily apartment communities, right? Luxury apartment communities, and they've got all over the place that they need to market independently that this technology has been applied to. And you've done some really cool things with that one in terms of integrating with their property management system to pull out features and push leads and new business opportunities right into there. So it's working with their existing systems. Two, I think, the culmination in your own venture that you started called Only Local Tickets, that's taking this MarketSnare technology and localization to a whole new level. Talk a little bit about Only Local Tickets and what you're doing with that as well.
Yeah, so we've really built our agency around helping companies with, over the years, we've more and more built it around helping companies with many locations as a specialty, because it's such a unique area, which is why you guys created this podcast, right? It's because it's a unique area with unique problems that not everyone solves. And we have built more and more of that into our business, but we had also had this legacy work that we did. We had happened to do a lot of work with really great ticket brokers, some of the largest and best, especially regional ticket brokers across the country. And some really great brands and who aren't the scammy type, right? Like they're like legitimate. They're trying to do the best, and they compete ultimately with StubHub and things like that. And for years I was like, this MarketSnare technology needs to be paired with the ticket space, because there's nothing more local than a ticket. With one of my past clients, I had flown out to Boston for the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. And while I was out there, one of the things I was interested in was this concept a little bit. But while I was out there, I had a whole bunch of ideas as I met with one of my past clients in the space. And I just remember the flight home, I had like a layover in Detroit. And I just remember it was quite a long layover. I just walked the Detroit airport laps just thinking and creating this idea in my head. I came up with the name. I came up with tons of the concept about how this would all work. And I was like, this needs to happen, because right now, if I was to go to a StubHub, a Vivid, a SeatGeek, or whatever, if I was to go onto the site, even Ticketmaster, like, yeah, they might try and highlight stuff from me, but I'm never going to go to those sites to find out what's happening in my city. And ultimately, the power of MarketSnare is to be able to create truly local content and to create truly local customer buying experiences, right? So I was like, why don't we combine those two things? And we create this scenario where we have, instead of one major ticket site like a StubHub or a Ticketmaster or a Vivid Seats or SeatGeek or whoever, why don't we have a whole bunch of sites that are highly local? So that way, the only thing you see on that site, hence the name Only Local Tickets, is only tickets in Indianapolis. So only IndyTickets.com or only FortWayneTickets.com or only MiamiTickets.com, right? So when you go to those sites, that's all you're going to see. There's no other sites like that are out there. And there are some competitors who've done some things, but they haven't done it to the extent that we have. It's definitely been a heck of a project, and it's very new getting off the ground. We have a lot of faith in it. And it's a bit of a passion project of mine, but we're hiring our first employee to work on at least one location full time. And we're doing kind of a lot of local businesses. A lot of franchises, they start with the first franchise, right? And they start with, I'm starting this business, and it might be a window company or a window shutters company. And then they'll go to the next market and the next market. And then they're like, all right, now it's time to franchise. And now we're going to get a whole bunch more on. Well, we're doing the exact opposite model. We're starting with every single city we can imagine because of MarketSnare. And then we're going to eventually have people in all of these markets to be able to help run marketing, partnerships, to be able to be there from a customer service standpoint. That's the goal, is to be able to have in each one of these cities all of this, but it's all powered and makes that all work because we can start with MarketSnare and we can say, let's start with one, yes, as where we focus, but let's have all the sites running at once because those are going to work really well together. And it just ultimately creates a better buying experience and a better shopping experience, because one of the questions people always have is what's happening in my city, right? And most cities have maybe maybe their tourism company does something, right? Maybe I know Visit Indy, they have a site, and some of them have those, but a lot of them, there's so much stuff on that. It's not just like, here's the major shows and concerts and stuff, right? So this is really here's what's really going on from a major standpoint. Yeah, right now, we would love to eventually add in some of that other stuff. But it's really great to have an experience of I can go on the site right now and I can see what's happening tonight in Indianapolis that's of note. And so really that's what it's about. So that way we can build those email lists and make it just a better experience, because I don't know about you, but when I get an email from Ticketmaster or StubHub or any of those guys, most of the time the stuff that they're showing me, I was like, I'm glad you think I'm going to fly to this concert in LA, but I really don't want to go to this concert in LA that badly where I'm going to fly. Right. And so that's the problem.
Right.
And don't you feel like, Tim, that is the trend that Google keeps moving towards anyway, that we've seen since even before you and I met, is that their goal is to serve the searcher and to give them the intent and the relevance that they're doing. So really, you're extending, by utilizing MarketSnare, You're just extending what we've seen as the move that Google keeps, trudging on towards for years. So wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And it shows by this. Every time we launch a new MarketSnare program, we compare our conversion rates versus the typical, because almost every single client we come to has, and you guys see it with your guys' clients as well, I know, almost every single one of those clients you see, they have the normal, we have a main website and we have a local page for all of our locations. That's great. And it's a good start. But the thing is, every time we built out localized websites or presences that are like fully encompassing, where the only thing on there, when that phone number is on there, that's the local business's number and things like that, the conversion rates rise dramatically, normally in the range of like 20 to 50%. So and that just tells me right there that like it's a better experience for the customer. They are more likely to say, oh, this is the right place. I'm in the right place. This is a good business. They have all the information I need and it's all localized to me. It's just a better experience, and it's what Google wants at the end of the day. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a good kind of segue into getting into, the trends for 2022. Sometimes you hear, oh, SEO is dead, or, there's not that much opportunity. And, obviously Google always wants to sell more and more ads, right? Now, so to kind of start this off, obviously you guys both of you guys are doing this every day. You're seeing the numbers. We manage over 30,000 local markets. We see a lot of that data. You're managing many local markets and sub-markets. So, I think all of us, we this is what we do. So obviously for our clients, they want to be more visible for more terms and more geographies. They want to lower their cost of ads. And so I'm going to kind of start out. One of the things that I've been reading about quite a bit, and we've seen this with some of our clients as well. I know it kind of can vary by industry, but a report that I recently read, and we did a podcast on this, that Business Insider just did an analysis, and they're saying that on average, the digital advertising is rising by, I think they said like 86%, had done that in 2021. And, I don't know if that's expected to level off or what, but one of the drivers was that advertisers were more reliant on digital ads. And so it was bringing a lot more competition into the space, which is a bid system. And so it was bidding up, a lot of the terms. Same thing with display inventories, Facebook. We definitely saw a rise in Facebook advertising across our clients. And so do you see this kind of trend? I know we're going to talk about organic, but, and the reason that's important because as digital advertising, if the prices are going up considerably because there's more competition, there's even more value, I think, from organic, because we're generally seeing organic, the cost to generate a lead organically through some of these efforts, because it's really about effort. And if we can out effort people, we can do a better job for our clients of using this tech and localization tactics. And what I always say is like the resources of the national brand, but make them look like and feel like a local business. Now you get that synergy that really wins in the marketplace. So do you see that do you see ads rising, the cost of ads rising, and do you still see kind of organic as, the best value in generating local visibility and new business opportunities for your clients?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So right after the pandemic, we loved it. So especially in the home services space for many of our clients, cost per click for the first time in years tanked, like significantly in almost all local type search terms. Like the prices we were seeing with certain clients, we were seeing average prices fall from like $5 cost per click to well under $3 cost per click on average. And
because people were like really busy because everyone was spending money and they didn't want to advertise.
No, it's because a bunch of people stopped their advertising because they didn't know what they could do, what they could or could not do. So a whole bunch of people pulled out.
Oh, I see.
And then you also had a whole bunch of people who weren't, sadly, the people who didn't have as much money, they pulled back because they're like, I can't spend money right now. I'm afraid to spend money. Or you had a bunch of companies who in that short period could not.
What time frame was this again?
About summer 2020, right?
Okay.
Since then, though, unfortunately, everyone started realizing the market started coming back really hard, and so prices now are probably higher than they've ever been from a cost per click standpoint in the home services space, especially. There was that nice window from like May to about like end of December in 2020 where it was like, hey, this is awesome. This is great. We're loving this. But in all of 2021, almost every month, every month we're seeing like cost per clicks climb right now. Mm-hmm. And so Google also was giving out ad credits. I don't know if you guys remember that. Google was giving out a bunch of ad credits to businesses during that time. And so all of that was kind of reducing some of that cost per click too. And so, but now with everything ramped up, Google is getting probably higher cost per clicks in a lot of these spaces than they ever have. It still performs really well. There's no question. It's not like we're being priced out of the market. It stinks because our margins are getting cut, right? For a lot of our clients, but, or their margins, because it's their ad dollars, but, they've generally compensated by raising the prices on their products at the same time. So Google's always a balance, right? Google can't have the auctions go too out of whack. Otherwise, no one would spend the money, right? So they have to get a balance of where they're going to be. But yeah, absolutely. Like PPC is expensive. It takes a while to learn. And there's some markets that that are hyper competitive. Home security is an example of that marketplace where it's not uncommon if you get by really targeted terms for the cost per click to be $115, $130, $150 per click. And so if you have a market that's like that, you better have a really good marketing funnel, right?
Yeah.
And so, because otherwise you'll never be able to make money off of it.
Well, yeah, and understand the lifetime value of your customer because you're probably not going to make anything out of the gate.
Yeah. And so,
and go ahead, Tim.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and this to me, everything that Tim is saying goes back to a fundamental principle that we've talked about for a long time, which is, paid ads are fast, but they're finite. You pay your money, and as long as you don't do anything stupid or break rules or, do spammy things, your ads go in and they start getting served. But when you stop spending that money, the ad stops showing. It's like a billboard. As long as you're paying, it's there. And when you stop paying, it's gone. Organic is a slower build, but it's like a train and it keeps going. It's going to take a long time for the impact of that, for the value of it, the inertia, the momentum to start backing off. And so when you couple that with the fact that you generally get higher click-through rates, where if you can get in those top three spots, which Matt loves to talk about, how much more value 1, 2, and 3 is than the other positions, which is a proven fact, then you can then decide whether you want to allocate funds to also pay for ads, or if you can broaden and divert that ad budget to other places where you're not currently doing so well while you build that up. So it's not a one good, the other bad. It's how does each of them fit proportionally into your marketing strategy?
How do you see that balance, Tim, like between organic and paid? Like, what kind of value, are you seeing a significant drop in cost per lead organically versus paid? How do you balance that with your client?
You're always your cost per lead on paid or on organic is always going to go up as long as you're increasing your traffic and your leads, right? You're always going to go down. Sorry, as long as you're not spending more money. As long as you're not spending more money, right? So, and you could there. And some of the best ways to spend more money on organic advertising is creating a lot more content, right? Yep. I can't tell you how important it is to spend more money on more content because those things are going to last and they're going to last a long time, right? and you're going to get a lot of value out of them.
Yeah,
So,
you mean like the gift that keeps on giving. You write a great guide to, whatever,
and sometimes it'll just continue to grow, and it feels like you're hardly feeding it, and it's just like it's growing.
Yeah.
We have a program.
You have all these articles, and then they get indexed, and they might be relevant for 10 years, 5 years, and they're out there. And then as you add those, you continue to build that authority. Now, if it's at the national level, it's kind of for national search terms. But if you do it at the local level and they're localized, then you get that juice inside that local market. Correct?
Yeah. But at the same time, I think if you can, you need to be in all of them. And this is why, because there's going to be times where Google benefits paid search over SEO, right? Yep. And there's going to be times where they change their SEO mix, or because when it comes to local search, you have a lot more channels than people think. A lot of people think local search, and the first thing they think of is GMB or GPV now, right? Google Business Profile. And they think that's the end all and be all of local search. Well, that is absolutely not the case. There is a lot more traffic available than just what comes out of the Google Maps and the Google Business Profile in that 3-pack on that landing page. There's way more traffic out there than that. What just comes in there? Do you have your ad traffic? You have the organic traffic, which still performs really, really well. Is the organic traffic that's under that ad? And
what do you see the mix on those? Like if there's, I think I remember you saying it was about 50-50 or
on the mix of all three.
Well, no, the mix of, I guess, G and
organic versus more map pack.
Yeah.
Traffic.
Yeah. For most of our clients that we see about 25 to 30% of their traffic. This is traffic. This is not necessarily conversions. Conversions are much higher of their traffic coming from truly organic, the 10 blue links under everything else. We see about 25 to 30% of their traffic coming from GMB.
Yep.
And this is home services, and this is going to be different in different markets, but we see about 25 to 30% the traffic coming from there. However, generally we do see that for search, not talking about paid. And when we're talking about Google specifically, we see often that traffic, the GPV traffic does convert very, very well. It's generally often we're seeing at about 50% of can be up to 50% of their leads is coming from that. Is what
25%, 25 to 30% of the traffic versus organic being the other.
Of the other, like 75%, 75 to 75.
So you're actually driving more from non-GMB, but the GMB is because it's got the review and everything right there. It's like it's a little bit more geared to people making a decision right now, and they're converting.
Exactly. Plus, with Google Business Profile, people can convert without ever coming to your site, right? Like, a conversion or a lead can happen without someone ever coming to your site.
Because I do that a ton, like just my own personal habits. I'll search on Google, whether it's Google Maps on my phone or just in a browser, and then you see right there, click call, and then, boom.
Well, I think it's important too for people to understand that goes along with this is the huge difference between query type and query intent. If you type in ice cream Fort Wayne or ice cream near me or whatever, and it pops up a 3-pack, which it will pop up a 3-pack for that type of a query, then why are you going to go to a website? Everything that you need is probably going to be right there. Okay.
Yeah, but if it's a higher consideration product,
it's a higher consideration. It's a very specific query type. There is no need for that. Well, then when you get into more long tailed terms or something that is higher consideration, where a longer process, then all of those terms are not going to generate 3-packs. So if you're so hyper focused on the map pack and you're forgetting about everything that leads to long-term visibility, top of mind awareness, share voice, et cetera, then you're leaving a ton of business on the table.